Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Stitches and Scribbles podcast. My name is Erin, and if this is your first time on the Stitches and Scribbles channel, I do podcasts about crafting, mostly yarn based, but lots of other stuff too. I also do bullet journal videos, so feel free to stick around and check out some of my other content if you are interested. Today is probably going to be on the shorter side of a podcast. As you know, if you've watched some of my previous videos, I am still in the process of moving. We are temporarily moved in with my parents, which is the room that you're seeing is actually their guest room. But we are still looking for a house, and in the meantime, we're working on packing up all of our stuff and putting it in storage. So even though we are pretty much all moved in here with the stuff that we need daily access to, we are still working on getting all of our furniture and stuff into our storage unit. So we're a little short on time when it comes to YouTube stuff at the moment, but hopefully that should go kind of back to normal for the next couple months, and then we'll have to do all this again when we find a house. So you'll see a lot of moving stuff from me again soon. Hopefully. Keep your fingers crossed that the housing market doesn't continue to be crazy overpriced. We're really hoping to get a house in a specific neighborhood of the town that we live in, which if we have to expand, we will. So far our problem seems to be that there are plenty of houses popping up in the area we want, but not with the specifications we want, if that makes sense. Like, we'll see lots of 2-bedroom houses when we're looking for a 3-bedroom, or we'll see houses that don't have a finished basement, but really the only deal breaker thing is the 3 bedrooms, and space somewhere for a home office. Everything besides that, we're pretty flexible, so we've just run into too many houses that had too many things wrong with them for us to be interested. And at this point we've put bids in on 3 houses and haven't got them yet, so we'll get one eventually, but for now we're making adjustments as needed. I do actually have some finished projects to show you today, which is very exciting, although none of them have the ends woven in, so you'll have to excuse me on that. But with our new routine, I have actually had more time for crocheting than I thought, especially because sometimes after dinner we're just sitting and talking as a family, so I'll work on crochet, or whereas in the past I might have gone and done something or done more active things in the apartment, I'll sit here and listen to an audiobook and crochet at the same time. My Netflix watching has definitely decreased drastically since moving here. Not that I can't watch Netflix, because my computer is up here and my parents have a TV, but for some reason I just haven't been gravitating towards that since moving in here. I've been doing a lot of audiobooks, a lot of podcasts. The current audiobook that I just started, I think I'm 2 hours into it, is 6 Crimson Cranes, which I'm really loving so far. So if you like young adult fantasy, it's definitely a good fit so far. Obviously I haven't finished it yet, so I can't give a full review, but I am enjoying it so far. Definitely, I haven't seen a fantasy book quite like this, and I believe that there is a second one out already. I don't know if it's a series beyond that, though. It might just be the 2 books. But yeah, having a lot of fun sitting and crocheting and knitting. The first finished object that I have to show you, and this is one that you saw last time, and it is now finished with the exception of weaving in the ends, is this striped knit prayer shawl. This was just knit and garter stitch to make it really simple and easy. And in the last podcast episode, I talked about how I thought I was going to have to add some gray, plain gray yarn in the middle between the 2 skeins, but it was definitely long enough by itself without adding any more yarn to it. So very glad to have that finished. I'm going to weave in the ends and get it donated soon. Again, this is something I've talked about before, but I am in my church's prayer shawl group, So once a month we get together and sit and crochet or knit and just kind of chat. But the goal is to collect prayer shawls for parishioners who are going through a tough time, whether that was a death in the family or dealing with illness or something like that, just to kind of have a physical representation of showing that the community is thinking about them and praying for them. So that's what these prayer shawls are for. Ours are always rectangular, which I think is pretty common for prayer shawls. So even though I personally prefer triangle shawls, I make rectangular ones for that group. So this is a finished one. The next finished object I think I showed in the last one, and this one also needs the ends woven in, but this is a virus stitch shawl with some Hobie yarn. I can't remember what the name of this yarn is at the moment, but it's one that I actually wanted to give away with these very cool galaxy colors, and I don't know if you can see it, I'll kind of shift the angles, but it is a sparkle yarn. I originally made this to wear to our parish auction night because it's a big fancy party. There's a silent auction, a live auction, and I worked a lot on the auction committee, both with decorating and with helping to organize kids' art projects, like students from the school, so that they could be auctioned off. So originally I was making this to wear that night because it was very cold, and I thought the sparkle kind of dressed it up a little bit, but when I held it up to the outfit that I wanted to wear, it didn't match as well as I thought it had in my head. So I ended up not wearing this even though I finished it like just in time. I actually wore my Dragonborn scarf, Dragonborn shawl for my Dungeons and Dragons series, which is just a plain green. The skirt I had chosen was green, and I thought that the green stripes in this yarn would match, but this green was a little too blue toned. It didn't quite look right. So I finished it. I will definitely get some use out of it and wear it because I love these colors, but I didn't end up wearing it for that event. Oh, this isn't a virus shawl. This is a virus meets granny, or German shells and granny stitch shawl. Some people call it the virus stitch, some people call it German shells, but it does have those granny rows in there as well. I picked this one originally because it works up really fast, and at the time that I originally chose this yarn and started working on it, I did not have a lot of time before the auction, so I wanted something that worked up quickly and didn't eat up a ton of yarn to do so, because I only had 3 skeins of whatever this yarn was that I now can't remember. I'm sure it's in a previous podcast episode somewhere. So you can go check out the previous ones if you really want to know what it was. But yeah, I still love how this turned out. I think the colors are very pretty. I wear a lot of blues and greens. Not so much like purple or like pinkish purple like there is here, but definitely blues and greens. So I'll get some use out of that one. Then my third finished object, speaking of things I made for events and then it didn't work out, I originally wanted to be done with this for Valentine's Day because I don't wear a lot of pink, but I'm slowly realizing I don't dislike pink, I just only like certain shades of pink. So I wanted something pink for Valentine's Day, and I had this Cotton King, I think it was a Cotton King's cake from Hobie, that's pink to gray, kind of gradient. But I did not finish this in time for Valentine's Day. In fact, I am filming this episode of the podcast on March 14th, so very much ahead of schedule because I know that I'm going to have a busy couple weeks. But I actually finished this yesterday, so March 13th. So almost a month late from Valentine's Day, but I still thought it turned out very pretty. I do wear a lot of gray, which is why I liked this color. It's kind of a faded, kind of dusty pink. So still had the pink color in it, but would match my personal style better. So now instead of wearing it for Valentine's Day, I'll probably wear it for during Lent. And I always forget the name of the Sunday because there's one during Advent too. But if you don't know, because you're not Catholic, the kind of traditional colors for both Advent and Lent are purple, but in each of those time frames there's one Sunday where the priest actually wears rose or pink. And if you have an Advent wreath or a Lent wreath, there's one pink candle on it. So there's one Sunday in both of those time frames where you have to wear pink, but I can never remember what either of them are called. So this is now going to be my designated shawl for those 2 Sundays. And since it's a really lightweight cotton, even if it's really warm for the one in Lent, which is the second to last Sunday in Lent, so the Sunday before Palm Sunday, I'll probably just wear it with a short-sleeved dress or top so that it goes over my shoulders instead of being worn as a scarf like I usually do. But I'm really excited about this. This is just virus stitch or German Shawls stitch, whichever one you want to call it, and I got a lot of mileage out of this cake. This shawl is huge. It is longer, either longer or as long as my wingspan, longer than my wingspan. So it's probably close to 6 feet across since I'm 5'8". But I'm really excited about this one, and I have other colors of this cake. I think it's a Cotton Kings cake from Hobbii. If not, it's one of those cotton yarn cake brands. They have a bunch that are fairly similar, so you can check their website. I also have this in other ones that started with pink. I ended up choosing the gray again because I thought it was for Valentine's Day, but I also have it in a pink to kind of olive green gradient, and I have one that starts with this dusty pink, goes to like a magenta, and then a purple, and then a really deep teal. So I will probably go ahead and make both of those, although I don't know if I'd keep all 3 because I don't wear that much pink, so I might give them away to somebody in my family instead so that I don't have all of them. But yeah, I'm really proud of how this one turned out. I'm very excited to wear it at some point. And I do still need to weave in the ends. I don't know if you can even tell because of how thin this yarn is, but I think this afternoon I will be weaving in a lot of ends. Let's go ahead and jump into whips. So one of them, I know I showed this last time, and I don't know if I've even made any progress on it since last time. If I have, it's been very little, but I am making a scrap blanket with all of my random bits of worsted weight yarn, and I am going kind of in rainbow order, although I think I'm going to end with some neutrals. So I am working on green at the moment. I'm pretty sure I did not make any progress on this from last month, so I apologize if it looks exactly the same as the last time I showed it, but I was working on other projects clearly since I have 3 finished objects, and it hasn't even been a full month since the last time I filmed a podcast. So scrap blanket will definitely be in progress for a while because it's going to end up being pretty big. And what else do I have over here? Oh, my other whip that is currently active is another prayer shawl. So I actually started in the center for this one. I did a combination linen stitch square and granny stitch square, and then I just kind of extended it to the other edge. So started working back and forth instead of around, and now I'm working on the other side. This is using the Yarn Bee Yarn ID in Thistle from Hobby Lobby. This is the yarn brand that my prayer shawl group typically purchases because we do have a budget from the parish so that our the president of the prayer shawl group can go and purchase yarn for us. We don't have to purchase our own necessarily, although I definitely use it as an opportunity for some stash busting occasionally. But I think I'm going to write this one up as a pattern, assuming it turns out the way that I want it to. I need to finish the other edge for sure, and then I'm probably going to do a single crochet border around the whole thing to give it a little more structure. But so far I'm really liking how it's turned out. You guys know from some of my other projects I really like the moss stitch or the linen stitch or whatever people call it, but I like that stitch a lot. I used it for my temperature blanket that is still not finished. And I also use it for my Mirkwood shawl, which was my first published crochet pattern. As of right now, it's still the only published pattern on my Etsy, but I have quite a few more in the works that are all almost completed so that I can upload some new ones over the next couple of months. So if you haven't checked out the Mirkwood shawl, make sure you do that. I actually will be doing a crochet with me this month where I make another Mirkwood shawl for myself, and I actually have the yarn that I'm going to use for that sitting out because I think I'm going to start filming that next. Today is definitely going to be a very busy filming day. But I'm going to use the Hobie Happy Toes yarn, and this is in color number 1, so it's kind of olive greens and browns, although to me in certain lights the brown looks purple, but it's definitely brown. I'm going to be making myself a Mirkwood shawl, and what was I going to say about this? Oh, I know it might be kind of odd to do a shawl in sock yarn, but I wanted to try it in some really thin yarns that I get some really good stitch definition. In the one that I made that was actually photographed for the pattern, I used like a 4-weight yarn. I think it was a Lion Brand Mandala yarn that I used, so it's a lot chunkier. But I wanted to see how it works up in a really fine weight yarn and a variegated yarn instead of a yarn cake. So that video should hopefully be coming out soon. As of right now, you guys seem to like the crochet with me or knit with me videos a lot. Those are getting more hits than some of my other videos on YouTube, so as long as you like them, I'll keep doing them. But I'd love it if you considered checking out the Mirkwood pattern, and then maybe when the video comes out, you can even crochet along with me while you work on your shawl. It's a pretty easy shawl pattern. It just uses linen stitch and granny stitch. So if you're a adventurous beginner to an intermediate crocheter, it should be a perfect fit for you. I don't think there's anything else I have to tell you this month. Again, even though I got a lot of shawls finished, it happened to be all shawls this month, not a lot has been going on other than moving. It's been pretty quiet otherwise. So I don't have any yarn hauls. I haven't really even been shopping for supplies or for yarn, so I don't have any acquisitions to show you like I usually do. And this month has just kind of been about finishing things up and making sure that I'm settled and hopefully soon can establish a new work from home routine. I also had a full week last week where I subbed for 4 days. The school had no class on Friday, but I was subbing for a teacher who took vacation, and that was kind of an odd experience because it was my first full week back in a classroom. I know it wasn't actually a full week because there's no school on Friday, but the first time I've been in a classroom more than 2 days in a row since I left my full-time teaching position. So it was weird. It was like the first couple days it was really exciting. I felt like I was a real teacher again, which obviously I'm still a real teacher. I have a teaching degree, I have teaching experience, but by the end of the week I still hit that point of being teacher tired. If you know, you know. So it made me very glad for the position I'm in that I still have the opportunity to be in a classroom. And since I only sub at one school, I know the kids pretty well now. I'm doing pretty good on names, at least for 6th and 7th grade and half of 5th grade. 8th graders, there just happens to be a ton of them, so I'm struggling more with their names. And I don't do little kid grades as often as big kid grades, mostly because most subs do not want to be in middle school or even past 3rd grade. They think the little guys are easier. I think the opposite, but that's just me. So that made moving even more challenging, or at least more challenging for me to see where we were at in terms of the whole process. I think now I'm feeling pretty good about it. We're probably 75% packed up. but I know it'll make a huge difference once the furniture is out to see like what we really have left to do and how much like cleaning there is to do. But I think we're getting pretty close. There's not that much left that we have to do. So hopefully it all goes smoothly and we're out on time, because our lease ends on the 31st, which is why I am pre-filming a bunch today, since I have hit a point in time where both my parents had errands that they needed to get done today, so I had a couple hours to film, so I'm just knocking out a bunch of videos. If you're watching this podcast, I filmed my April bullet journal and the second half of my Pack Up My Yarn With Me video today, and those are currently uploading on my computer as we speak. And now I'm filming the podcast so I can get that uploaded and possibly even start my next video before they get home. So lots of filming, and it's not that I can't film when they're here, it's just easier to do it when they're not, because A, I don't have to worry about me talking to a camera bothering them. B, I feel very weird if I think there's someone else in the house and I'm talking to myself and I think that they can hear me, even though I know that they probably can't. It still feels weird. And C, I don't want to prevent them from like listening to music or whatever in the background, because even though sometimes you can't hear stuff in the background that I can hear, sometimes even if the volume is super low, YouTube can pick it up and you can get a copyright strike, or so I'm told. I've never had this experience, but I don't want to risk like them watching TV or listening to music or something in the background and me getting a copyright strike for something that you can't even hear. I don't know if that can actually happen, but that's kind of why I'm taking advantage of this time frame where I'm in the house by myself. But I think that's enough rambling for today, so I'll let you go. If you liked what you saw in this podcast and you want to see more, I have a whole playlist of all my other podcast episodes on my channel. You can also check me out on other forms of social media or see my other videos if you want more crafty content. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye everyone!